Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here with the pleasant task of talking about the defense after that win in London and what a defensive effort it was over the Titans in the 24-16 win. Joining me here, very appropriately, to talk about this is James Ogden of UK Ravens. James, how you doing?
Good, Ken. Thanks very much, and a pleasure to meet you this weekend in person.
Was an absolute pleasure. You people were fantastic hosts, great events on both days. We actually searched around for the second event a little bit, had some trouble, but we'd already spent some great time on Saturday afternoon meeting a bunch of UK Ravens people. Dave Crescent, I know, who's the founder there, Gaz and Ben and Shane and Ian, James, of course, and Gordon McGinnis of PFF. A lot of people know he was there, so I had a good chance to talk to him about some PFF stuff, inner workings. It was a lot of fun. Also met Frank M., I will just call him because I can't necessarily pronounce his last name, of Dutch Flock, who gave us a nice flag there. So great opportunity to meet the European flag fans while we were over there, and certainly a great weekend it turned out to be after that win on Sunday.
Yeah, it was fantastic, Ken. We had an amazing time. We've been planning it for quite a while. I think we were really proud of the events that we put on as well, because this is something that, we didn't get any kind of help from NFL UK or anything. We got a lot of help from the Ravens, who obviously are a kind of first class organization and really came through for us. But to be able to put on the event we put on the Saturday with about 400 people in a bar in central London, and then on the Sunday to do a tailgate which had 500 to 600 people there, with a lot of Americans who made the trip over coming to the tailgate, and sort of mentioning that they felt like it was the most kind of American style event that they'd ever been to over as part of the London games, and that was kind of what we were aiming for. I think Bobby Trossett came, he mentioned he felt like it was Fed Hill at one point in one of the events. So I think that was what we were kind of aiming for, to get people to feel like it was a sort of typical American style kind of weekend for a big game, and hopefully people enjoyed themselves. They certainly seem to.
Definitely a ton of fun, and Ravens cheerleaders were just showing up as we left, which was kind of cool that you guys got that done. But let's get to the game itself, because I think that's what people are tuned in to hear here. Thoroughly dominating performance. Ended up just an 8-point win, but boy, in terms of the play on the field, a lot different than that.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, it was, we joke in the UK Ravens that we don't talk about the game that never happened 7 years ago against the Jags at Wembley. This was the complete opposite, and actually felt like a bit of a turnaround. It sort of seemed like, certainly for the first half and to an extent in the second half as well, it showed that the Titans were the team that turned up at 6 a.m. on Friday, and the Ravens had been in London for as long as they had. And I saw John Harbaugh in the press conference sort of talking about how, they're sort of grateful to the Ravens organization and to the Bisciotti family for being able to put that on, because they came over, they spent a lot of money and made sure that they got away with that win. And I think the expense they used to get that win really paid off.
They did get a payoff on that, that's for sure. Once again, totally overwhelmed the Titans with a 4-man pass rush. 23 of their 27 pass plays that resulted in a pass or sack were 4-man rush. So great to see the Ravens continue this trend of really not rushing numbers and still getting tremendous results.
Yeah, really, really great. And this game, less so, I think you'll point out with the numbers, less so with simulated pressures and more with lots of stunts, which sort of felt like that on the watch back. And then I saw your numbers, and that sort of confirmed that.
Right. We'll hit that up in the pass rush a little bit later. They're now tied for the NFL lead in sacks with Buffalo at 24, which seems incredible. The 4-sack-a-game pace, I'm sure, is not sustainable, but it's still exceptional to be in this spot at this point in the season. And definitely the Ravens have done it with combination pressures. They are not getting many single man to the quarterback type of sacks. So it's done with 1-man pressure, 2nd-man pressure sometimes, 3rd man cleans up. Just a lot of really great team pressure.
Yeah, 100%, and great to see Clowney able to make a tackle on the quarterback this week as well.
Yeah, somebody else is missing the sack on the quarterback this time. That Van Noy missed one, and then he had another one wiped out by penalty before he finally scored the final minute of the game there. Ravens developing now. One of the big, I think, worry points is they're short at safety, which we never would have expected at the start of the season with all of the depth they had there. But they lost Williams in the game to what was said to be a hamstring injury, but honestly looked like he's playing with one arm before the hamstring injury. Really kind of sidled up to Henry on that long run before he finally knocked him out of bounds, and also didn't have much to use in terms of a paw on the 15-yard touchdown run by Henry either.
No, and also there was the play where he probably. It's tough because he was running over there fast, but a two-armed Marcus Williams might have made the interception in the was it the second half, I think, as he was running across the field. So yeah, he was definitely limited, and it felt like the kind of the Henry hit was sort of just sort of finished him off and was the kind of the end to that game. It is going to be interesting. Part of me would wish that they would just keep him out now for a few weeks, regardless of how serious that hamstring is, and just let him get a bit more recovered. But there's also the worry that I mean, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but there's also the worry that pec injury is not necessarily going to get better until he gets the surgery. Which
I think that's the obvious concern at this point is even if he plays with a good hamstring, and even if the hamstring is good again, then it may be that he needs to get the surgery. And I'm afraid that if he waits to the end of the season to get the surgery, then it's going to knock him out for some of next year. So knocking him out this year when he is playing with one arm doesn't seem to be as bad a choice. But tough to have a free agent you sign for big money and have it not work out so quickly in such a big way. But on the other hand, Geno Stone has been one of the best safeties in the league. He's sitting up there with 3 interceptions now in the 8-way tie for the National Football League lead. He's at least playing well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big fan of Geno Stone. I'm sure we'll get into Geno at some point in the
I am sure we will too. You think a play of his might come up at some point in this? Yeah. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, just so you know, on your hair brushing against the microphone. So I don't know how we can make that better, but hopefully, yeah. Let's keep going here because we got a few things to talk about, and then we're going to get into a new format for this particular program, which is just going to go through every play of the game. And part of that is due to travel and some restrictions we've had in terms of compiling everything. Did finally get everything done, but not in the way I usually do it. So we're going to go through each play of the game. Continue on with the safety thing. Nice to see Brandon Stevens step in at the end of the game and play strong safety, which I was really trying to figure out exactly how they were going to do it, whether it would be a corner moving back there, whether it might be Mollett moving back there, but ends up being Stevens, who has a little bit of experience, of course, at safety.
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of hope that doesn't become a long-term thing, just because I've been so impressed with him at corner, with the strides he's made at corner over the course of the season. So, but good to see him still able to sort of step in there.
Yeah, and I guess the safety problem is a little bit amplified by the fact that Mollett did not play well in this game at slot corner. Now, he had played well in previous games, in all fairness, but he did not play well in this game. Had a couple penalties, really didn't look that good. And Hamilton can move up and play his spot. And I actually think that's how the Ravens are strongest, if they have 2 good safeties. And somehow they're down to, 1 good safety right now. Now, they can have, I guess, Stone and Hamilton play the back end next game, but if it's Stone and Williams, I'm a little concerned about that pairing as a every down thing the Ravens go with after seeing the way Williams has looked these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's just the real challenge is that it compromises what the versatility of the defense. It compromises the things that Mike Macdonald is able to do, because it means he has to start putting. At the moment he has players playing in roles that really suit their skill set. But if he has to start, using them slightly differently, so if he has to start using Cal Hamilton more as a traditional safety, he used him very effectively in this game while he was in as a bit of a neutralizer, basically, as a linebacker, basically a run game neutralizer. like if he has to start using him more as a traditional safety because of the injuries, then you lose that element to the Ravens defense. And so it starts to make him have to be more creative with the way he game plans, I think.
I think the versatility of the Ravens defense, and particularly going between now one of the only two packages the team plays, which is remarkable because the Ravens used to be so multiple under Wink and in fact under McDonald to a lesser extent as well. But in years past, all previous defensive coordinators extremely multiple in terms of how they look. But there's a couple of things that have made the Ravens very specific in their packages. And the primary thing is having two inside linebackers they want to keep on the field every play, because that basically eliminates the dime defense. So they're down to just nickel and base that they ever play. Now, you can play great nickel and base defense if you have Kyle Hamilton playing nickel in a nickel, and you have Kyle Hamilton playing strong safety in your base defense. And he is the ultimate versatility piece in terms of that. But if you don't really have that option because you kind of always need him at strong safety, then you lose the flexibility to play nickel versus 12. And playing nickel and stopping the run when you have a six-man box has been the hallmark of the great Ravens defensive teams of all time. They've always been able to do it, but they've always had players like Ray Lewis, players like Terrell Suggs at edge, and great interior defensive linemen like Haloti Ngata, Kelly Gregg, Sam Adams, all those guys over the years who've been able to really help stop the run with a lighter box. And Hamilton is the ideal player you want at safety who can give you things in coverage, but also as a tremendous run defender.
Yeah, and that's been you're right. That has been the hallmark of this defense through the first weeks of the season. So it will be frustrating if they lose that. I kind of do trust McDonald to be creative and to get something done. But I think what I've noticed over the course of his sort of now year and a bit in role as defensive coordinator is that I like that he's sort of taken a little bit and I don't know whether he would say this, but I feel like he's taken a little bit from a divisional foe in Lou Anarumo, because Anarumo's defense is very difficult to go against, or was very difficult to go against in the last few years because of the way it sort of chameleon-esque is able to change form on the back end from post-snap, pre-snap, post-snap, and how the sort of experience of his defensive backs and playing together as a unit enables them to do things, react on the fly and do things very differently to other defenses. And I feel that has been, so they've changed personnel a little bit. So it's probably not exactly the same. Yeah. But the way they are able to play on the back end has reminded me a little bit of the way Anarumo plays, gets his back end to play on for the Bengals. And so you'll sort of, but Hamilton, as you've mentioned, is just a very key piece to that strategy. And so to lose him, to sort of lose him from that position will be difficult.
We'll probably hit on this on some individual plays, but it's maybe an overriding note that we want to touch on is this is the first game the Ravens didn't really lean on cover two the same way. And you kind of expect that because it's the Tennessee Titans and they've got known for a great running game, known for a good play action passing game as well, of course, but they're known for a great running game more than anything else. And so what the Ravens really did was move Kyle Hamilton when they were in base defense up into the box as a third linebacker with five down in front of him, five at the line of scrimmage in front of him, 3 down and 2 outside linebackers, and effectively used him that way, which was effective in the early parts of the game. And they were with single high, so Marcus Williams was doing that for the early part of the game. He made one great play that you already talked about where he came across the field, got the pass defense. Otherwise, not a great game again, honestly, for Marcus. So a lot of problems. I thought at the halftime, that was the biggest play of the first half because it really showed that Hamilton that Williams could get his hand up and deflect the pass. And that was something I was a little concerned about. But then the second half, we saw a lot of the tackling problems come back and that became an issue again.
Yeah, the tackling. It's just the thing as well as this through. They've had a few more problems, I think, in the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure what your charting would say, Ken, but it feels like this is a pretty good Ravens tackling team, a very good Ravens tackling defense this season. And so Williams the last couple of weeks, it's really stuck out because against a backdrop of have a crew of very excellent tacklers, it sort of sticks out like a bit of a sore thumb.
Yeah, it does. They had other problems in this game. They missed a few tackles, and it's kind of hard because you get really definitional on that Spears screen pass because there's a lot of guys who like ran themselves out of position on the play, and Tyjae Spears is very elusive, so you expect that to happen. But they also had a bunch of missed tackles otherwise in this game, some on the run, some on the pass, where they just could not get it done. They also had some good missed tackles in the game. We had at one point Van Noy miss a tackle at -7 on a sack, and Clowney turned it into a sack -9. So we'll talk a little bit we'll go through the plays in just a minute. I really kind of want to get to that pretty quickly. A couple other real quick things before we move on, though. I think the Ravens do need a new safety for the Lions game, and they've cleared a spot on the practice squad today by cutting Kenyon Drake, and I do expect them to go out and get someone coming up. I think that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, it would make sense. I think the Ravens will be fine with Geno Stone stepping in for Marcus Williams, but as we've discussed, it just changes the dynamic, and so they will have to add some depth there. And I agree with you.
And they were really good early in the season. Daryl Worley stepped in and was outstanding in that back end role, which allowed Hamilton to move up front. That's what they need again, and they had that guy on the roster that I think could do that because it's a split safety you're really looking for. So Duron Harmon, with his free safety background, would have been perfect for that. And unfortunately, he's gone now. They did get Houston Carson back. So he played a little bit in the preseason. Wasn't great, but he might be a guy that can step in for the Ravens in a very specialized role and do something. I think he's the most likely to be activated against the Lions. All right. The Ravens won the snap count battle 70-46, which is something I've been complaining about a lot with the Monken offense, is that it really hasn't retained the ball. But this is a defensive and offensive effort here. They went 8-16 on third down themselves. The Titans went 1 of 9. So definitely a combination of positive influences to get to 70-46. Ravens also did a great job in the first half of monopolizing the ball beginning and end, which is what you really want to see. So they started with the ball, had long drives, and they finished with a long drive. Then they punted finally, and then they got it right back and kicked the field goal with 1 second left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll get into this on your offensive show. It's frustrating to see the red zone offense sort of fall off a cliff in this game, but the long drives were there, which you're right. It been a bit of a feature of some of the games this season of sort of asking the defense to step up too many times, basically, but that wasn't the case in this game. Yeah,
really, really key in this game because they had 46 defensive snaps and they lost Brent Urban early. And this is when you play the Titans, you have to play a lot of base defense. We'll get into that, but they played almost half base defense, which means on half the plays, you need 3 defensive linemen. You only have 5 active. So basically, when you're down to 4 after Brent Urban is out, you have to use like 2.5 out of 4 every play. Think of it that way. And that means you're playing every defensive lineman is averaging 62.5% of the snaps. So that's too high by normal standards. You probably want your most used defensive lineman around a little over half the snaps, maybe, depending on who they are, a little bit over half the snaps. But they didn't have, because of the number was small, they didn't have anybody go over 37 in this game.
Yeah, and I think the thing, one of the things that did expose in this game, and like you said, I'm sure we'll get into it, is there were times when they had to have Travis Jones and Tavius Robinson on the field at the same time, on the same side of the defensive line. And the Titans had a bit of success running at those guys. Those guys are at the early part of their developmental curve with the Ravens. The Ravens renowned for developing defensive linemen, and I see flashes with both of those guys that would show some potential in the future for a 3rd, 4th year breakout for those guys. But at the moment, asking them to play too much together on a defensive line is a potential struggle. The thing that really helped the Ravens, which I know we'll definitely get into, was that Justin Madubuike had one of his best games as a Raven, I think, and sort of showcase some of the reasons why he's certainly a candidate for an extension, I think. And like I said, I think we'll talk about that, but that really helped sort of paper over that crack a little bit, I think.
Yeah, he was terrific. I thought Pierce was terrific too, honestly, though I saw PFF didn't grade him very well. So we'll talk a little bit about that, no doubt. The Ravens ended the Titans' absolutely historic streak of goal-to-go success. So I want to go over this a little bit because the Titans, I think it was mentioned by Eisen on the broadcast, and they said they had the longest streak this century of consecutive red zone success or something. He wasn't very specific about it. I think he means games that they hadn't failed on not a red zone, a goal-to-go opportunity in some number of consecutive games. And I looked it up, and they actually have not failed since November of last year. I think it's 12 consecutive games they've played without a failure. They have made 23 of their last 24 over a year and a half. They only missed once last year. So going back to December of 2021, they'd been 23 out of 24. Against the Ravens, 0 for 2.
It's an interesting one. I obviously was at the game, so I didn't hear the broadcast, and then I've watched the all 22, so I haven't I didn't hear the broadcast. But that's pretty remarkable, really, isn't it? And it does speak to the caliber of this defense this year.
You know what's weird about it is they're basically perfect in goal to go situations, and they're terrible in the red zone. They're 35% red zone team. So it's like, how do you make sense of this? It's basically they always get stopped between the 20 and the 10. Yeah. Anyway. Tell you what, why don't we jump in right away into the play-by-play review of this game, and we can do it how you like here. I think you probably got notes on this, but why don't we treat it like I'm the announcer and you're the color guy, and we'll have a little back and forth on any play you'd like to, and I'll just go through defensively play-by-play. We've done this once before with Sarah. I love doing it, but if I'm doing this with you, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun as well. So quarter one, 10-26. The Titans finally get the ball down 3 points. We're not going to go over the kickoffs of the situation. One of two times that they threw one of these little shovel, what ends up being a pass because it's a forward lateral, but it's almost directly sideways from Tannehill to Henry. He took it for -4 plus 11. We had some good blocking on the play. The right guard Brunskill blocked Matabike. The tight end pancaked, that was Wesco, pancake Clowney on the play. The center pancake Mollett. It's bad to have all these pancakes occurring once. And the right tackle, 66, I'm forgetting who that is, blocked Queen. So pretty well-blocked play to gain 7 yards on that first one.
Yeah, 66 Hubbard, I think, isn't it? On the
Hubbard, you're right, yes.
That was interesting because that first play was kind of like you worried that it was a bit of a harbinger for the rest of the game. But it was one of the few times that they were able to get the defensive line blocked up as well as they did. Various plays throughout the game that I'm sure we'll go through did not happen. They were not able to get what they wanted to get done on the offensive line. Lots of it Matabike and Pierce is doing, and obviously Queen and Roquan Smith sort of running riot as well. But on this play in particular, it was a struggle to get anybody to Derrick Henry.
I'll bring up one more point here, is that they gave the start to Jadeveon Clowney, and they don't need to, but Harbaugh often does that kind of thing. He was only in for 3 run plays the whole game. They ran for 24 yards on those 3 plays. It was Harrison who played a lot of the early down Sam linebacker snaps on that side, and Harrison has been a terrific edge setter this year. And he really got the job done, I thought, in this game as well.
He really did. I had a note about Harrison. He continues to be a really useful player to deploy in these type of games. You don't want to get him one-on-one with an elite tight end in the league, which is liable to do in some games. So you've got to use him sparingly in certain games. But in contests like this, where you're not worried about the tight end hurting you, he is such a useful guy to throw out there and to set the edge, because these tight ends for the Titans, Chig Okonkwo has shown a little bit throughout his career so far, but not enough for you to be concerned. And I feel like Harrison was a really useful guy in this game, and just shows the value, his value to the team. I think at this point now, it's a sort of. He was a third round draft pick, and to me, he's turned into what the Ravens probably envisaged for him when they took him.
No, I think much different.
You think? Oh, do you think?
Yeah. Well, see, he was drafted really as a 2-down Mike, to my way of thinking. Not really a guy who would be a passing down. Now he's an outside linebacker. His body shape has changed, and I don't mean to contradict you like that, but you know how it goes.
No. I think you're right. I think you're right in the sense that they probably didn't see him as a Sam, but I do remember them talking about the pick as a a guy who you don't often see in college anymore, a bigger linebacker that would be able to do the types of things that they have him doing now on the field. I agree with you. I don't think they necessarily saw him as an edge setting Sam, but that was probably a kind of backup plan that if they needed to at some point, that might be the case. It just because of his play style in college, I think would lend itself well to this type of role.
They definitely. I trust your judgment on the draft stuff, by the way, completely. Great draft guide every year. I will say that he came into the league at just a shade under 240 or maybe exactly 240. Do you know what he lists at on the Ravens roster this year?
I don't know.
259.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, he's grown into a Sam body and definitely is a great edge player. Well, let me continue going here because we spend that much time on every play. We'll never get there. 953. We had a little run right for one, and this was Clowney still on the field on this play. He undercut, then shed Okonkwo, which I thought was pretty good play by him. I think PFF might have tagged him with a missed tackle on this play because he got his hand out and he actually got a nice redirection on Henry to push him to the outside. That first contact lined him up nicely so Humphrey could take him down. That's not an easy tackle for Humphrey to make normally, but when Henry is not lined up for line of scrimmage, it's a much easier situation.
Yeah, I think you've said it all on this play. That's if I go on every single play, we're going to be here for several hours.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation here. 3rd and 2. Henry, Tannehill dropped back and threw for Chris Moore, 7 yards between the numbers and the left and the right hash, I should say. DPI on 44 on the play. I thought kind of ticky-tack. He definitely had some touch on there. It definitely was not the worst penalty of the game, but I didn't like it. I didn't like in general the way Tennessee gesticulated and got flags.
Yeah, and I didn't like the way.
I'm sorry, that's Hopkins. I got it wrong. Hopkins.
Yeah, no, I did not like the way. I agree with you. It certainly wasn't the worst call of the game, and there were a lot of ticky-tack type defensive holding, pass interference calls that just, you call that you throw that flag, you're gonna have to throw a flag pretty much on most plays in the NFL each week. Like it didn't. I was not a fan of a lot of those flags. Maybe it was different. I usually have probably a more neutral reaction watching it on TV, but being in the stadium certainly gets you more riled up. But I feel even having watched it back, I think I would say I would feel pretty secure in my analysis from watching it live, which is that some of those calls were fine, but some of them were really not what I would expect. I don't think.
All right, well, let's keep going. 9:08 to go. Now they got a fresh set of downs, obviously, after the DPI. Run play again, and we have Hamilton rush unblocked off the offensive right side to force 22 inside. Good play there, by the way. Again, this is a case where I think PFF probably tagged Hamilton with a missed tackle on this play because I saw they had a couple for him in the game. Maybe it was one, maybe it was two, but I think this would have been one. And he was kind of at the feet of Henry, but wasn't able to completely wrap up and get the job done. But what he did do is just by rushing off that edge, he forced the play inside where the bodies were, and they got him taken down for a gain of just one up the middle. To me, that's where, and I had a little talk with Gordon about this at the UK Ravens event, was that PFF really needs a grading system for missed tackles. So rather than ask them to do it, I'm just going to do something myself next year. I think in terms of scoring missed tackles on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basis for severity.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I wanted to talk about with this play was just I don't think he stands out particularly each week, but I think Broderick Washington, who made the tackle on this play, and I think he's a useful anchor to that defensive line. He's a guy who is providing a level of consistency in his play that the Ravens do need on that defensive line. There's Madubuike, thankfully, has developed into what we expected, and we'll talk about him in a bit. But Broderick Washington, for me, is exactly what they signed him to that contract to be, which is a reliable member of that defensive line. And obviously, he made the tackle on this play. So just thought I'd mention him at this point.
really nice shed of Wiley on the tight end on that play to make that tackle too. So definitely positive. Move on to 8:30 of the game. So it's now 2nd and 9. Ravens juiced up their pass rush for one of the only times in the game. And it's just an interesting point to pick it. But I guess you throw it out there early during the scripted plays. You let them think about it during halftime. But they sent a 7-0 pass rush. So a 7-man pass rush on this 2nd and 9 play. And you did have Van Noy beat the tight end Wesco inside for pressure. But Tannehill is a very good hot read player. And this is one reason why I don't think they used the blitz a lot in this game. But he threw a pass for 11 yards to Westbrook-Akina, right? I believe it was, for 7+4. Nice trailing tackle, honestly, by Stevens. There's not a lot he can do to defend that play easily when it's going across the field, but I thought he did a good job minimizing the damage.
Yeah, and I think this was one of the sort of the bits of the game that this was one of the very few plays in the game that sort of showed why the Ravens had the defensive game plan they had in terms of pressure. Because Tannehill gets a lot of takes a lot of flack for sort of being a sort of middle of the road type QB, but one of the things he's very good at is recognizing pressure. If you put him in a situation where you don't want to, he doesn't have the weapons to be able to consistently win down the field. He has Hopkins, but if you take Hopkins away, there's just nothing else there in that passing attack, especially when Treylon Burks is out. And Burks hasn't turned into what a lot of people thought he was going to be anyway. So you don't want to give him the opportunity to do what he does best. And I think that sort of showed on this play. It was like, as you say, it was kind of good that Stevens sort of cleaned it up for what could have been a lot more than what it was. But it's kind of it showed that the gamble of bringing pressure in that way probably isn't worth taking against a Ryan Tannehill team that only has DeAndre Hopkins to throw the ball to.
Yeah, Tannehill's certainly known as being a great play-action quarterback, a guy who can turn his back on the field, and he's more of a traditional turn-his-back guy. Also has the advantage of being a less mobile quarterback that the defensive end on the boot side does not respect his speed or getaway ability, so they don't look for it the way they would with their laser focuses on Jackson when he tries to do anything like that. So that's worked out well for him. But I think he's just a lot like Roethlisberger in a way that as he got older, reading hot was what Ben still did very well, even at that way. In fact, Roethlisberger had some other things, having big hands and whatnot, that would let him get rid of the football without rotating the laces perfectly. That was something that Tannehill may or may not have. But once the Ravens got Tannehill out of the game, it really showed that they were capable of doing some things differently. They still didn't, but they were capable of doing some things differently in this game. All right, let's move on. So they got another first down here. The next play at 7:47. We have another 4-0. This one turns into an ample time and space opportunity. It ends up being a ball right between Smith and Queen in zone. Looked to me like Queen had responsibility for Henry, the running back, to the outside. So this was probably Roquan Smith's responsibility. Play went for 11 yards, 6+5. A little bit more than you'd like after the catch. I noticed Rich Eisen talking about the various players meeting at the quarterback and how Hamilton went shoulder to helmet. And 81, who is Wiley, right, kind of went zigzagging off the field, an odd gait.
Yeah, and this one was interesting because it was also, I think, the motion from Okonkwo that sort of there was the motion from Okonkwo out, and then Henry also going out in the flat created pulled the linebackers around a little bit. I can't remember who it was, but there was a defensive back that went out with Okonkwo, but it should have pulled that side of the defense around a little bit and created that space. And I did feel like there were times when the Titans had some pretty good, decent zone beaters sort of drawn up, and it happened again later on in the game with a Hopkins catch. So they did a good job of that, I feel, in some instances throughout the game, but not very many. And this was an interesting one early in the game, because it was funny coming out of the game and sort of thinking actually there was a ton of pressures that the Ravens got in that game when early on, there were a couple of signs where it looked like Tannehill was going to have a lot of time to throw the ball. And this was one of those instances where sort of early in the game, I sort of sat back feeling like we've given him probably too much time here to carve up the secondary. But actually, obviously, that completely changed around. But that was one of those instances. And interesting, you charted it with the ample time and space opportunity here.
Yeah, what did I else say? I want to say about that play? Eisen mentioning Hamilton leading with his shoulder. I thought Hamilton completely clean tackle on the play, by the way. And I know that Wiley stumbled off the field, so there is the thought that he's taken a hit to the head. Anytime anybody gets concussed, it's the defense's fault, is the thought. He just got hit by 3 players at the same time. Unfortunate set of circumstances. Absolutely nothing dirty the way Hamilton made that tackle. It's very much a heads-up tackle where he's not taking a chance in terms of helmet-to-helmet contact there.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into the ejection, but definitely not the narrative that I would be. Yeah, I don't feel like that was. I agree with you.
I think if anything, the league will look at that play and say, you did this one right, you did that one wrong. There's a fine involved here, but we understand you're not a dirty player on any kind of pattern of behavior basis. All right, jump ahead 7:16. So what do we got? We got another first down here. And on this one, Matabike bowled the right tackle Hubbard for a negated QH, unfortunately. But Tannehill went to Hopkins again, 22 yards up the left sideline. A very late, the left hash, I should say, left numbers. Very late DPI called against 32. Flag came in forever after the play. At the game, you really notice this thing when it's beat 1, beat 2, and then the flag comes in kind of thing afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I was celebrating the incompletion and did not see the flag at all until one of the Titans fans in front of me started celebrating it.
Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college ball, and the brand new cash-out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit? Cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for a chance at a bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odd boost, same-game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no-strings-attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use the promo code RAVENS on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code RAVENS to claim your cash bonus now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Guys, I've shared moving. I was using this for all my meals. Now I'm working from home. Guess what? Microwaves in the other room. I'm using this for all my meals. Factor is how I get through my lunch day every day. But they've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I haven't tried the breakfast ones yet, but why not? I think I might add that to my next order. But I love them for lunch. Plus, they've got new autumn fall flavors out right now for limited time, featuring seasonal veggies like cranberry, pecan chicken, and apple Dijon pork chops. And again, just like everything else, they're ready in just 2 minutes. They'll satisfy your fall cravings during this busy season without the hassle. So go ahead and level up with Gourmet Plus options as well, prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccoli, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Head to factormeals.com/Ravens50 and use the code RAVENS50 to get 50% off. That's code RAVENS50 at factormeals.com/Ravens50 to get 50% off your Factor meal today.
Again, a little bit ticky-tacker, possibly not on second watch, not as egregious as the first one on this drive in terms of the call. I can see a bit more why this one was called. But still a little disappointing, I would say, as a Ravens fan.
Stirator they brought on for the broadcast, and he said he agreed that the flag should not have been called. That he thought it was an equal opportunity for the football. I forget the word exactly used, equal rights. But it basically was more of a shoulder-to-shoulder play than playing through the back of the receiver, which is the thing they really are supposed to look for. And Williams had the right to go for that ball too, and he made a play on it, and it just obviously made the call. Move ahead, 7-10. We're going to hear Matabike's number come up a lot. He bowled, then shed the left guard 77. That's Skoronski, and tackled Henry for RL2. Really good generalized block shedding in this game from Matabike. He really controlled the line of scrimmage both as a pass rusher and as a run defender.
Yeah, and we'll talk about sort of some other techniques he used later on in the game. But what I liked was the thing with Matabike. If we can spend just a minute on him, I'd be grateful, Ken. I think the thing for me is with Matabike, when you talk to evaluate players and evaluate draft prospects and players in general, one of the things you need to look at is play speed and play strength. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. Play strength really is the equation is the addition of your core strength and your processing and your technique. And Matabike has always had that core strength, that explosive power that just was so obvious coming out in the draft. And he's shown that in his first couple of years with the Ravens. But you could see when you sort of looked at his game in depth, and I'd done a couple of in-depth studies on Matabike over his time with the Ravens, where you just didn't quite see the technical refinement. And in some cases, the processing as well of the different types of block he was facing, how to deconstruct those, and specifically the different types of run he was facing to be able to deconstruct the block that was coming at him. What I've seen this season is a significant improvement, not only in his technical play, but also in his play in his block recognition, which has allowed him to just be far more effective at the line of scrimmage, at the point of attack specifically. Now, Skoronski has been okay in the league. He's not let's not get too carried away here. This is a okay interior offensive line, but Matabike absolutely demolished them with several different techniques to be able to break this down. This one specifically, he very quickly recognized the outside zone play that was coming at him, and he quick upfield burst was exceptional. The hand usage, exactly what you want to see in terms of placement and power. And Skoronski was in the backfield, and without having to do any kind of sort of traditional Ravens gap play on the defensive line, he was able to take away two gaps just through his explosive power and running through Skoronski into the backfield. And there was just that play had no chance because of Matabike on that play.
Yeah. I mean, you can deny space at least two ways, but the two most obvious ones are 1 to 2 gap the player and hold him up so you can maintain the option to move left or right and also maintain space for a linebacker to come in behind you. Or you can penetrate, and that takes away vertical space from that running back, bifurcates the field very early and forces them to make a choice. And you hope then that they make a bad one or that they make a delayed one, and you get a better option there. Yes.
And we'll talk about a play later on where he actually uses the other version, where the Ravens over the years have done a really great job of developing defensive linemen to be able to corkscrew their leg down to reduce their surface area to do that two-gap technique. And he's had some trouble with that throughout the start of his career. And there's a textbook example of it later in the game, which hopefully I'll remember which play it was, but there is a textbook example of that later in the game from him.
All right, outstanding here. So that took care of that play. We go to 6:25 of the first. And now let's see. I don't have the down and distance on this, unfortunately, but a 4-1 play, ample time and space. We had an interesting play here because Van Noy was blocked 12-6, but it seemed like he got a piece of Tannehill's jersey on the way by. I don't think it really distracted Tannehill the way you'd hope because he kept his eyes downfield. That's a big difference, by the way, between Tannehill and Willis. Willis cannot keep his eyes downfield. Anything goes wrong, nope, wait, there's a shiny thing. He can't keep his eyes down the field at all. And the shiny thing could just be somebody else's white uniform that's bothering him. So in this case, he got a little piece of the sleeve, didn't really appear to affect him. And then 96, Broderick Washington had a very late hands in the face after 3 seconds pressure, but Tannehill still got the ball off into the end zone, and it was intended for Westbrook Akine, who Stevens was credited with a PD on the play. I think it was more of just a drop and too far behind the receiver, but Stevens made sure that ball was not received by driving through the receiver and separating from the football.
Yeah, and that's been one of the key improvements to Stevens' game, I feel, over the course of this season is his play at the catch point. Something that we sort of maybe were a little concerned about sort of going forward with him, but that's been the thing that's allowed him to play corner at a higher level this year. I agree with you. I'm not sure that it was necessarily the most textbook in-phase coverage that you would have expected from Stevens, but that play at the catch point, really helped him on this play.
Yeah, the thing I'm concerned about. I'm less concerned about his physical play pretty much all the time. I think he's good there. It's finding the football for Stevens has been the big problem, and he has been one of the guys who's really benefited from basically the Ravens playing a ton of zone defense and having everybody looking back for the ball. This was a game where they played a lot more man, and they had a single high safety, and they had to because of they hadn't been running attack. It actually should have really slowed the Ravens down in this game. And you look at the 6 sacks, you look at the fact they got an interception from Stone on very much a recognition play where he undercut the receiver. And it didn't really, in the end, do as much damage as it might have.
No, it really didn't.
All right, let's move on. Now, last play of the drive, a 4-0 ball out quick on a wide receiver screen to 11. That's Chris Moore. He took it for 6 yards, -1 +7 by the left sideline. Hamilton had a missed tackle at 3, but then Queen did one of his 3 drive-ending plays of the game. He tackled Moore to force the field goal attempt, and I think they were inside the 10-yard line at that point when that happened. Trying to remember exactly where they were on the field. But anyway,
I think they were just outside the 10.
Just outside. So it was a red zone failure, but not a goal to go failure.
Yeah, and I think what I loved about this play was this is a nice textbook example of actually, and this is like a bit of a theme of this discussion, is that I do think a number of players on this defense have taken a step forward in terms of their development this year, and Queen is obviously one of them. We saw a lot of that development come through last year, but one of the things you see on this play specifically is, we'll talk about Tyjae Spears when he has that ridiculous catch and run, but Spears on this play is moved out in motion out to the right hand side, and Queen initially follows him out to the right hand side. I haven't studied the play in depth enough to understand what Queen saw, but he stops following him and changes direction very quickly. And one of the things you're seeing from Queen this year is that the game is just slowing down for him. He's able to be much more patient, and it means he's able to use that explosive ability that he has to get to the football. So this was a play where if you pause it and screenshot it, sort of just pre-snap, you'll see Queen moving in entirely the wrong direction to make a play on the ball carrier and the drive. And then by the end of the play, you got him making the play to end the drive on a play that actually in the end looked like it was kind of well blocked up and might have been a challenge for the Ravens to stop it. Queen had to be the guy that got there to make that tackle, and he did. And so that's the thing for this Ravens defense, is just Queen making those big time plays when they count, which was something we didn't see from him in the first couple of years, but we're certainly seeing from him this year.
I mean, that's the kind of play where Queen could have messed it up in several different ways in the past. He could have not had the diagnosis component. He could have bitten on eye candy and been the wrong assignment as well, which I don't think was the case here anyway. No. Or even if he figured it out or been quick enough to get back to the right position because the ball was a little off target or whatever, he still might have missed a tackle because that's who Patrick Queen was in the past. Patrick Queen has cleaned up an awful lot about his game. And I know there's a lot of talk around Baltimore about re-signing him at this point. I don't think it's a practical decision for the Ravens to make. I think it's probably not practical on a couple levels. Unfortunately, I think the same is probably true for Geno Stone as well, that if they wanted to get him, they needed to do it before the year. They couldn't wait to this point if they wanted to sign him for some additional times and have him be one of those lifetime special teams guys. But both those guys have priced him out of town. Matabike honestly probably has as well. And I think if the Ravens were to somehow get one of them, my guess is the guy they might want is Matabike. Of the three of them, I think they've been too great at finding safeties exactly as they need, and they've been also very good at platooning the weak side linebacker spot, which I think they might go back to next year if they don't have Queen.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? You sort of look at the modus operandi over the years when they had Ray Lewis around, and were able to fill in on that other inside linebacker position. To me, the key is Mike McDonald, because I think if he does get a head coaching gig, which at this point, the only thing that will stop him from getting a head coach, the only two things that might stop him from getting a head coaching gig is that he's very young still, and also that he's a defensive guy. But if someone is smart enough to give him a head coaching job, it changes the equation slightly. But I agree with you. I think I'm not necessarily sure it's the wisest investment of the resources that the Ravens have, particularly when you're faced with a question on the defensive line that has been exposed in this game, where if you don't have the kind of competent depth there, so if you don't have Washington and Urban and the competent depth on that interior defensive line, and you then don't have somebody who's as much of a game wrecker as Madubuike can be on the interior, then you start to struggle on the defensive line. And I think that sort of strength on the defensive line has helped the lack of availability on the outside, and so I think you're right in the sense that I would prioritize Madubuike, but unfortunately I think Madubuike probably is going to, if he continues on this trajectory, he's going to be the most expensive of the three.
The most expensive, yeah. He could be a $20 million guy potentially if he turns in the kind of season he's on pace for. It's incredible because he started off the year with a bunch of penalties. Honestly, was not playing that well the first couple of games, and he's really turned it on. He's playing at a higher level. Let's jump ahead, go to the second series of the game. Tennessee starts out with a 2-yard run. This is a good one where Harrison wins the right edge versus a tight end. There's a lot of this going on in this game. Forces Henry inside. 97 of Urban and Roquan Smith cleaned it up. And this is where Urban suffers this injury. So we're still very last play of the first quarter. Urban is out and lost for the game with what they've now classified as a stinger.
Oh, that's good. I hadn't seen
it.
It is good. Yeah. So, because this was sort of textbook Brent Urban just holding up at the point of attack and just not being moved and being able to be there to clean it up. I agree with you. The guy who made this from an assist perspective really was Malik Harrison. And, we talked about him a little bit, but you're right. You just can't block. The great thing about Malik Harrison is you can't block him with a tight end. You're going to have one of the best blocking tight ends in the league if you're going to get him blocked up with a tight end. And that really restricts what offenses can do against the Ravens.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons you can't block Harrison with tight end is he's not looking to do the things that a premier pass rusher is looking to do. So he's not looking to run himself out of the play. And offensive linemen tackles love it. They just love it when the defensive end runs themselves out of the play like that. But who loves it even more is tight ends because they got less to work with in terms of that. But yeah, it's a very good point about him. We'll start the second quarter at 15 minutes here, and we got a 2nd and 8 play. Tannehill with a 4-1 pass rush in, got the ball out quickly to I have Westbrook Akine, but this is a Conquo. I misread the number as I was taking notes. Anyway, pass left for 7 yards. This is a play again where Harrison is trailing in coverage. Not an ideal coverage situation for him, as you said, matched up against a tight end, but he does a pretty good job of pushing him out of bounds to just short of the line to gain, which ends up being important.
Yeah, and I think this was the thing I was talking about earlier, wasn't it? That you can have him in coverage against a guy like Chig Okonkwo and be Chig Okonkwo is pretty athletic actually, and he will be just good enough to get the job done, and that's kind of what happened here. So I think this is it's a good example of that play, of the sort of standard of play that you get from Harrison in the pass game.
3rd and 1 comes up, 14-25, direct snap to Henry. Henry runs right for 14 yards, looks like a big play, and all of a sudden I see the flag come out, and I go, got to be illegal motion, illegal formation, illegal motion, illegal formation. Sure enough, it's illegal formation. And odd one, because normally it's because tackles are off the line of scrimmage and you only have 6 left the line of scrimmage. In this case, Petit Frere is up on the line of scrimmage as the 8th man. Very unusual. I almost never see that one, but he got the flag and he was covering up the tight end in that situation, so he was flagged for it.
Yeah, and one of the few other occasions, right, where the Titans were able to get do a good job on the Ravens in terms of blocking up one of those Derrick Henry runs. They had like almost like a 3-man wedge in the middle that sort of gummed up the middle for the Ravens, and it meant that I think there was a puller coming round that was able to get a hat on a hat, sort of keep Queen pinned inside, and I think Hamilton got a little bit lost. And it was just one of those plays where the Ravens didn't quite play it as effectively as they had done in some of those other plays. So a really, really nice play for the Ravens there for the Titans, and unfortunate penalty.
Yeah. So anyway, that brought up 3rd and 5. It was really 3rd and inches. So they called it 3rd and 1, but it's really 3rd and 5 and inches, obviously after the play. And got Clowney seeing his first really big action of the game, beats the left tackle. 71 is, I've got to remind myself of who that is because he got pulled from the game. Dillard.
Dillard.
Yeah. So he beat him inside for a very fast quarterback hit. On that same play, Van Noy stunting was picked up by the center in that A gap, but he also got his hands up in the air and got a pass defense at the line of scrimmage just as the quarterback hit was happening. So that forced a punt between the two of them. Not the last time that would happen in this game.
Yeah, and as you say, the stunt was key, and it was the tactic that was used to the best effect for the Ravens throughout this game. And Clowney showing that his game is so different to what it was last year. You know, when you watch him, you can't put your finger on it, but it's a different lease on life. He's playing faster. He looks at his sort of back to his explosive self. And so what's ending up happening is offensive tackles are having to respect the thing that they're really having to respect is the thing that you've always had to respect with Jadeveon Clowney, which is that so those power moves, the coming straight through on the bull rush or a long arm, that you always have to respect those. But because of that explosive ability, he sort of, it means they have to respect other things too. So the offensive tackle in this rush, I think it was an inside move that Clowney got the offensive tackle with. You know, he's being able to win in different ways, which is not something we've necessarily seen from him over the last year or two. So he's a different guy this year. Yeah.
I have a little bit of a theory that goes with this. Is Clowney's been basically a 4-3 end for almost his entire career. And even though he often plays in a nickel where the Ravens have 4 up front, the Ravens are much more creative about bringing extra men, which has created additional flash for him to work off of. It's not always on his side. Sometimes it's on the other side, but it may distract a running back. It may take a chipper away from him. There's just been more opportunities for Clowney to get there in time. And the other thing that's great about it is, with zone defense, you got more time. You got more time to get in on that quarterback. And then all he has to do is create a problem for that quarterback. Doesn't have to get the sack, and that's certainly been the case so far this year. He hasn't been the guy who's finished all the time, but he's been a guy who's gotten a lot of first pressures and has been the one who set up a sack for somebody else. All right, let's move ahead here. So that ended that drive. They get the ball again at 10:13 of the second. Let's see. What do we have go on here? Henry ran for 6 yards. Nice block by Okonkwo on Roquan Smith. The center and the left guard both blocked Pierce together, which is a tough double for him to stand up to. And looks like the left tackle took care of Matabike to lead that RM6.
Yeah, and this yet again was another example of Patrick Queen's elevated level of play, where he takes away the initial gap because he fills the initial gap that Henry is trying to get the ball into, and then Henry obviously, is a great running back. Is able to cut back quickly, but Queen is then able to strafe across that double team and get across and make the play on Henry, which again is another example of the play that we've seen from Queen, and the thing that you mentioned where he sort of cleaned up a lot of the elements of his game, and he's able to make a tackle on one of the hardest running backs to tackle in the NFL.
All right, 2nd and 3. Another good stand-up play by Matabike, who stood up and shed the right tackle Hubbard on this play, tackled Tajay Spears for a 1-yard gain. Really good job also by Harrison again. We're going to keep hearing those names. Shedding the tight end. This is 86, the tight end. I forget who he is. He lined up as a fullback on the play, but Harrison's able to take care of him and hold that right edge, and then actually also assist on the tackle with Madubuike.
So what's nice here is that this is one of the examples. I think there's a second example, but this is one of the examples where Madubuike is able to corkscrew his leg, and this time it isn't one where he sort of occupies the double team. It's where he gets the tight end to entirely whiff on the double team, which allows him to stay to continue to control the point of attack. So that's a really nice play from Madubuike, something that I think in the past he would have been a little bit sort of bull in a china shop, not really understanding that was the design of the play, to kind of pin him using the tight end. But he saw that coming very quickly, corkscrewed his leg. There was no surface area for that tight end to hit, completely whiffed and had to go up to the second level. But he hadn't got enough of a seal on Madubuike to get the running past the line of scrimmage, and that killed the play.
All right, that brought up 3rd and 3. We have another Madubuike pass rush contribution here. Now he's stunted past the left tackle Dillard. Nice pick by Van Noy as the under guy on that play. There's some great picks in this game. And I talk about this every once in a while on the show, but the pick player, the underneath player on a stunt, oftentimes will have the best opportunity to rush the passer afterwards, because basically those two guys who were on him initially, because he's initially trying to draw the attention of two blockers, will each have a bad angle on their block, each take basically half at a 45-degree angle. And when one has to peel off, then that usually creates a really good pressure up to you. So it's oftentimes the under guy, even though you wouldn't think it, who gets the really good pass rush opportunity. But here, Madubuike was too quick and stunted past for the quarterback hit. And let's see, what else do we have here? Through to 18. Forgetting who that is, but he's the guy who had some bad plays on the bad play on the punt return. I'll get to it. Just give you a second.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I should have the roster up right now when we're going to be talking about these numbers. No, it's not your fault. Phillips.
Yeah, Cal Phillips.
But anyway.
I was going to say, I feel like this was a double stunt as well. I feel like there was a stunt on the other side as well. And Clowney, if I remembered it correctly, maybe it was a different play. Clowney,
that's the play.
Yeah. Clowney also had a really good pick on this specific play, because I completely agree with you. There were so many picks in this game that were really, really great, and I think Clowney had a really good one on this one as well that could have freed Pierce, but obviously Pierce nowhere near as fleet of foot as Madubuike, so I didn't get there as quickly. But that was a good pick too.
He's got big man quickness. He's been this is one of the odd things. Ravens history is now quite long. So we're in the 28th season of this team. So it's not like there's a whole generation of Ravens fans who don't know the 1996 Ravens. But the early Ravens had a nose tackle, James Jones, who stunted the most of any Ravens defensive lineman in their entire history, and stunted the most as the over. You'd think, maybe he'd be an under, maybe he'd be more natural fit for that. Marvin Lewis used it as an over all the time. He was fairly effective as a pass rusher. He had a high of about 5.5 sacks. And pretty hell of a player, but definitely from the unknown Ravens years, that almost everything in the Ravens media guide now says since 2000, when they're putting together tables of information for obvious reasons. All right, let's see, where were we? We had that ended that drive, so that forced another punt. We go to Q2 3:28. They get the ball back. They got a 4-1 ample time and space play. Tannehill throws to 10, so that's Hopkins again for 20 yards, 15 plus 5, 1 circle. I know you had some things to say about this, but Roquan Smith was the closest underneath as I saw it. 6 came back and made the tackle with an assist from Roquan.
Yeah, that was what I saw. I feel on this one, this was another like a nice example of a zone beater that they had drawn up nicely. It was again. Basically, the Titans over the years have used Derrick Henry really, really nicely as a decoy coming out of the backfield, and it sort of, when you do play zone coverage against them, it kind of stretches. It really affects your zones because you sort of always feel like a lot of defenders will always have half an eye on Derrick Henry just in case you need a gang to bring him down. So it always kind of affects the zones a little bit, and that was a good example of that on this play. And then the thing that they did was they got they've gone out and got a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins who is expert at finding the soft spots in the zone, and he's going to find those all day long and sit down. And with a veteran quarterback, you're going to be able to connect on those. It was impressive from the Ravens that there weren't more of these through the game. I think that was a feature of the way Mike McDonald chose to play this game, as you've mentioned before, with sort of single high coverage and doing things a little bit differently to what they've done over the course of the season so far. But I think it was also a feature of the play of the guys on the field. That meant that was the case.
Right. It definitely. The Titans were a more difficult matchup for the Ravens, a different matchup than they've had so far. A quarterback who really knew how to kind of take advantage of these things, and a quarterback you can't just sit in a zone against. So it was both a problem, but a running back more that you just can't sit it too high against. Let's move ahead to 246. Really nice play from Michael Pierce here. Bulls the center, 2 yards into the backfield. Harrison, again, a nice play, shedding the tight end. Wesco on the right edge and assisted Queen on a cleanup of Henry for a 1 yard run.
Yeah, I feel like talking about Patrick Queen's just going to get a hold here, but I think you're right. It was a really great from Michael Pierce, who I feel has had a really, really good season so far, and so that to me was a nice example of the play from him. And we talked about Lee Harrison so far, but again from Queen. It's not exactly a gaping hole that he's running through there, but he's so quick on the trigger to get into that. He's understood the play very quickly, the play recognition. He's clearly been doing his film study. Exactly what was coming there, and he shoots the gap hard and gets in and makes the play. So again, another great example of a Patrick Queen play in this game.
One of the good things we've seen from Queen in this game, I thought more than probably any previously, was good form tackling. He's using his arms to tackle, whereas even earlier this season, although he sometimes got away with it, driving into somebody with your shoulder, missing entirely because you try and drive in with your shoulder. It's one of the things when you have arms, gives you wingspan, gives you less of a chance to miss on that tackle. You might miss the tackle because you can't wrap up. But you probably won't miss the tackle on the initial contact when it looks really terrible that you do it. All right. So very next play, 2nd and 9, 4-1 pass rush. Clowney beat the right tackle 77. It can't be. It's got to be the right guard 77 because that's Brunskill. No, that's Skronsky. I know what it was. We noted this back, and then I went back and looked at it. Skronsky pulled on the play to the right. And he was then outside the right tackle on a pass play. And anyway, 24 beat him. But then he had to step over this Queen and Henry pileup that had occurred to get what must have been a very late QH. Now, you've seen the All-22 on this, and I had a note to go back and look at the All-22, but I didn't do it yet. Did the quarterback actually go down on this play? Because I didn't see it happening. It didn't look like it was going to happen.
I think he nearly went down, but then sort of stepped back out of it, I think.
Okay, so Connie's credited as a QH in the game book on this one anyway.
Maybe he did. Maybe it was somebody else that went down. Maybe he did.
And then the nice undercut from 32. One of the ones I thought was one of the big plays of the first half. Him showing not only can I have the range to play single high on the back end and get to a play, and this was over close to the right numbers, so it was looking like a fairly long distance diagnosis for him. But he not only got there, but undercut the play, got his hand on the ball. Even as you watch the thing on the broadcast, it looks like it's complete to Okakwo, but nope, football's on the ground.
Yeah, well, this is a great example of what would have been with Marcus Williams, which is the versatility of the guy. So he played with the Saints for 45 years. Did they tag him? I think it was 5. Yeah, so he played with the Saints for 5 years, who play single high, did play at the time, single high most of the time, and with a very deep alignment for their post safety. And that was Marcus Williams for 5 years for the Saints. And when you watched his tape when the Ravens signed him as a free agent, he got to balls that he had no right to get to, and that was through his technique. He's able to unlock his hips. It's just very fluid hips. He can unlock those really quickly, but also the main way in which he gets those balls, which is his processing ability, which is off the charts good, and that was on display in this instance. He cheated slightly over to the left hash to make the play, but that was good fundamentals to understand that he could do that, and then obviously broke on the ball. Just instantaneously, he's got such a quick trigger, and so to get there, as you say, was great. I like I said, I'd love to have seen a 2-armed Marcus Williams because maybe that gets picked. But this was one of the things that he hasn't been asked to do as much as a Raven as he was the Saints. He was constantly playing the post for the Saints, and obviously he's played a lot more split safety duties for the Ravens. And has also been a little bit more around the line of scrimmage. He was very deep, as I mentioned, with his alignment for the Saints. But this was a good example of what he used to do for the Saints regularly. It was a great play from him.
Yeah, it's just, you mentioned the single high, but it's almost unfair what the Ravens can do in splitting the back end between Williams and anybody. Really, I mean, and all three of them have been great. But Stone obviously is terrific instincts. The pick he got against Cincinnati in particular, pure instinct play. He actually read the play wrong off the line of scrimmage, but he didn't read the quarterback wrong. He got to exactly the right play. Daryl Worley was in there for a game and a quarter, roughly, or a game and a few plays, and was terrific. Terrific tackler, good positioning. The guy had been a corner for most of his career, but there was actually talk of him going to safety because he was too slow when he first came out. 4'6" guy, and they, he just fit there perfectly. I was heartbroken to see Daryl Worley hurt, and then you have Hamilton, of course, who was really known in college for being a lot faster than his 40 time, having great instincts and enormous range. But he's so valuable, you'd love to bring him up into the nickel because he can do so many other things for you. It's just unfair what the Ravens can present on the back end of cover 2 and how much that improves what otherwise would be some very limited corners.
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing for me I would agree with you. I was devastated about Woolley because you love a guy in that kind of story that's kind of worked so hard to get to where he is. The thing with Geno Stone, I sometimes know like you have to kind of self-scout yourself, and so I know sometimes when I evaluate players, I sometimes over-evaluate that the processing side of the game, the instinctive side of the game, and don't necessarily take into account enough the athleticism required to play the game at certain positions. And so I try to do that, which is why I end up loving when a guy like Geno Stone actually contributes on the field in the NFL, because, he is athletically limited, but he's because Marcus Williams isn't exactly the most athletic guy in the world. He's, like I said, he's very fluid in terms of his body movements, but actually his straight line speed isn't the greatest. But Geno Stone is worse still in terms of his speed. But play speed is off the charts for him because of not off the charts, but it's serviceable for him because of how good he is at instinctively and processing the game. And so to have him and Marcus Williams, I agree, just in a split safety role just isn't really fair, especially when you've got Cal Hamilton playing the nickel and doing what he does best, which is moving forward towards the football. You've got a great tandem, and it'll be a shame to if Marcus Williams does have to have the surgery and we sort of miss out on that going forward.
Yeah, I do think safety is one of the rare positions you can actually fill at midseason and not have the huge drop off in play because it's an instincts position. Because Duron Harmon was still available after the season started for a couple of weeks. So that's a great pickup. He would exactly meet the Ravens' need right now. Of course, he's gone now, but the Ravens have had a tremendous history of finding safeties that can provide them something. All right, tell you what. We're going to come back and do part 2 of this. We're going to try and do it a little faster, but we're having a lot of fun with this. I hope you're having as much fun as I am, James. It seems like it from your there. But I want you to tell folks where they can find your work online, first of all.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. My handle is at NFL Ogden. I've sort of rolled back some of my content over the course of this year. I've just had a new baby who's 5 months old now. So doing less content, but I will always try and get out my draft guide every year, and that'll come out around April time with lots of analysis on the prospects coming out of the draft and specifically how they fit with the Ravens, which I think is something that's sort of missing from lots of draft guides. You're able to see analysis of players, but not necessarily how they'll fit with your favorite team. And obviously our favorite team is the Ravens. So I try to give people a sense of how those prospects sort of stack up when they come into Baltimore. So that's the kind of thing that you'll see the most. But the other place you can hear me talk every week is the UK Ravens podcast, which releases every Thursday.
All right, outstanding. If you get over to the UK, make sure you spend some time with those guys when you can. They're probably having an event next time the Ravens play there. Hopefully, it won't be for a number of years. I'm always in favor of it being as long as possible between London trips. I think it's a big disadvantage, but the big fun, of course, is getting over there to see the UK Ravens, folks. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a Film Study short, hit me up on Twitter. Got some great stuff that's come across on Twitter, but DMs are always open, and I will get back to you very quickly about your idea, and we'll try and see if we can make that into an episode because, hey, that's how I create a lot of my content. James, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Ken.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.